Hey, I hope you are having an amazing day. I'm not going to be on here long. I was reading a post earlier this week that prompted me to have this conversation. It was inside of a group, and a lady was posting about her intention to create healthier eating habits. And she also talked about how quarantine led her to getting off track and that kind of thing. And it wasn't so much that she was off track, it was the way that she worded her experience of getting off track that led me to believe it might be some underlying issues, some issues that I had to deal with. And if you are struggling to create healthier food habits for yourself, then you're probably struggling with some of these same issues as well. So I wanted to come break them down and also help you flip them so you can make it easier for yourself to create healthier eating habits without flavorless foods, diets, and all of that jazz, right? Y'all know how I get down. So I want to talk about it. Let's get into it. If you are not familiar with me, you'll know how I get down. I am Dani Taylor, and I help women leaders to eliminate food confusion so that they can feel good in their bodies and eat for their best life without diets or food restrictions. Okay. Now, this post prompted me to have this conversation with you all because when I was working on creating some healthier eating habits for myself, like back in 2012, one of the 5011 times before I actually got it right. I decided that I was going to start eating healthier with one of my classmates, right? So we decided every time we were going to the calf, this is when I was in undergrad, every time we went to the calf, we were going to eat healthier. Now, my food choices at the time when I was going to the calf, it was more like pizza, cheeseburgers, omelets, like everything you probably don't want to have if you're eating a little bit healthier. But that those were my typical food choices. Like every Friday, I would go get fried fish, all of that, right? So we decided every time we were going to go to the calf, our new thing was going to be to get salads. Well, none of that ever happened. And every time we went to the calf, I always ended up eating one of those things that was more familiar to me. And it was because I was making these four grave mistakes that I want to break down for you. Okay. Now, mistake number one is I was attempting to create healthier eating habits with the same beliefs and the stories that created my not so healthy eating habits, right? Now, for a lot of people like me back then, I didn't put two and two together. You may not be putting two and two together that your beliefs and your stories that you have around the way that you eat in your relationship with food, all of that determines how successful you are in making any habit changes. Because if your beliefs and your stories are contradictory to the lifestyle that you want to have, it's not likely that you are going to create success around those habits. I was making a huge mistake doing that because I would just dive into it like, okay, I decided I'm going to eat salads. I'm going to just happy go lucky myself into the calf with everything else that I like to eat, but decided that I wasn't going to eat. And it happened more times than not that I would always be off track. It wasn't just that time in 2012. This was like every time before that, throughout the eating disorders and all of that stuff too. When I would make these decisions and not work on the beliefs and the stories that I had around food, everything will always go back to the way that I didn't want it to be. So if you are struggling with your food issues, you are likely making some of the same mistakes when it comes down to not addressing those beliefs and those stories that fed into some of the old eating habits that you had that you want to get rid of, okay? Mistake number two is I attempted to create healthier eating habits again with the same physical stuff in my environment. I didn't make any changes thinking I'm just going to walk up into this place with all this good smelling food and I'm not going to want to eat it, right? It just wasn't realistic. And not only that, one of my clients had this issue as well. She wanted to create healthier eating habits for herself. She decided that she wasn't going to have certain sweets. That was her preference. Y'all know me. I don't live by food rules. So if you decide that that's something for you, then that's what's best for you, right? But she decided that she was going to cut out sweets completely just because she didn't feel comfortable being around sweets and having just one or two servings. She felt like she always overdid it. So until she was able to create the confidence that she wanted to have around food, she just decided that she was going to cut it out, right? And that made sense for me. I did the same thing. So I supported her in doing that. But one of the grave mistakes that she made that I also made back then, and I didn't know she was making this mistake until she mentioned it, one day is that she bought the same snacks that she said she wanted to get away from for her kids, right? So they were still in the home, and she said that she wasn't going to have them, but she kept finding herself eating those snacks just because they were available, right? Now, if you are doing this, one of the nuggets that I typically give my clients is, if you're not going to eat it right then and there, leave it at the store. You don't want to have those types of things around you and in your physical environment, and they can trigger you to go against the decisions that you already made, right? You don't want to do that. So that's mistake number two, trying to create those habits with the same physical environment, okay? Now, mistake number three is you are attempting, like I was, to create healthier eating habits without reframing your view of food, right? So one of the things that I truly love about food back then, now I ain't even gonna get into it. But back then I really loved like salty, heavy, like greasy kind of things, right? Burgers was right up my alley, pizza, all that jazz. So I was always going into it like, oh, I'm going to be missing out on these flavors. I'm going to be missing out. I was thinking that, again, back to stories, right? I was thinking I was going to be missing out, and when I really like those things. Like I got gratification out of eating greasy foods and things like that. I had to reframe how I looked at that gratification to be able to be successful in my food habits, and you likely do too. So if you're finding instant gratification in having those sweets or things like that, if you want to be successful around creating healthier eating habits and you want it to be something that's a little bit easier for you, I highly recommend you either find instant gratification in following through with the habits that you said you were going to follow through and do. So if you said you were going to eat more veggies, when you follow through and do that and you find gratification in that and not necessarily the food that you were eating, right, for the taste and all of that satisfaction, or you find gratification in the end result and how you're going to feel. You feel good in your body. I This was one of the things that I had to switch up, that I was so glad that I switched up, because it gave me something to look forward to. Instead of me thinking I'm going to make these changes and then it's going to be an end, every time I made changes after that, I always got to think about how it's going to make me feel in my body, how I'm going to be able to wake up and not have pain in my knees or in my back, right? How I'll be able to play with my daughter and not have to be sitting on a park bench tired and sweating like I was, right? That stuff meant a whole lot to me, and that gave me something to look forward to. So if you aren't doing that now, I highly recommend that you make one or two of those switches, one of those two, so that you can have the support and things that you really want to have just inside yourself and in your mindset, and you have your beliefs to be able to support you, have the things that you say to yourself and the things that you know in you to be able to support you eating healthier foods. And mistake number four is that I attempted to have healthier eating habits, and this was what I pointed out in the post. This is one of the main reasons why I wanted to have this conversation, is because I attempted to make that one declaration. Okay, me and my friends sat down and we're like, we're going to eat healthier. We're all gung ho about it, stupid excited. And then next time at the cafe, we're sitting there eating pizza like, girl, having regular conversation like we never said what we said, right? If you are doing similar things, meaning you're allowing the decision that you made to be negotiable, then you're absolutely setting yourself up for this to be a really hard path for you. And I want to help you flip all of this, because I want you to take the flip side of all of these mistakes into consideration. I don't want you to just leave here and feel like, oh, I've identified these mistakes. I want you to be able to flip these things so they can start supporting you in making creating these healthier eating habits easier for yourself, right? So the flip side of mistake number one, you know you can't create and sustain new habits with old beliefs. So sit down, make some time to start working on the beliefs and etching out some of those stories that you have around food that have been holding you back. One of the big stories that I hear a lot of is, I'm not going to be able to have a delicious and good food and eat healthier. It is not one or the other. You can absolutely do both of those things. So I think it's important for everybody to get clear around what that particular story looks like for them if they are making these changes, okay? And if you're going to flip mistake number two, absolutely shift your environment. As I already mentioned, you can leave some of that stuff at the store. So if you know that it triggers you, and you don't even like, you don't have to be like, oh, that's a trigger. That doesn't necessarily have to be your wording. But if you go into the kitchen and you know if some cookies on the counter, you're going to eat those cookies, 9 times out of 10, they don't need to be there on the counter or they don't need to be there in your house. That is up to you, depending on how you feel. Depending on how you feel around that, you could make any number of changes when it comes down to shifting your physical environment from not going to certain locations for food, knowing if you go there, you always get the triple burger with the bacon, right? If that's what you always get there, you can decide to just go someplace else until you are more solidified in your healthier eating habits and you know that you're not going to negotiate against your goals in that specific setting, right? So if those are some triggers for you, whatever your food triggers might be, whatever that food is you like and you find yourself overeating, then I absolutely recommend you shift your environment in some different ways so that it can support you following through with the habits that you want to follow through with, right? Shifting a mindset or a mistake number 3, I want you to know that, like I already mentioned, you must reframe how you look at food, how you're looking at your gratification in those moments. If you're always looking for the instant gratification of that food just absolutely being amazing, it's being greasy, it's dripping all over the place, it's fattening, and you feel stuffed and just, disgusted because you're just wildly uncomfortable. If those are some of the things that excites you in a way. And it may sound crazy, but for years when I would go to Thanksgiving dinners, I would look forward to like the itis. I would look forward to eating all the mac and cheese and the sweet potatoes and all of that stuff. And I was physically uncomfortable. I was always physically uncomfortable after that. Sometimes I took a nap, like food coma style. And it's not that you consciously think that, oh, I want to go into this situation and feel uncomfortable in this way. It's just you don't put enough space between, well, I'm saying you like you did this. I wasn't putting enough space between my meals and putting enough space between what I truly wanted and those situations that were familiar to me, right? So back to flipping a mistake number 3, reframe your gratification. Reframe it to either you find gratification in following through with your new habits, or you find gratification in the long run in how you feel in your body and how comfortable you feel around food, how less you have to worry about food, and how you know that even though you're not worried about food all the time, you're still making the best decisions for your health and your body, right? Now, last but not least, mistake number 4, we're going to flip that because I want you to know that every single day, your brain, this is how it was created. It was created to keep you safe, right? So your brain is going to turn as many things as it possibly can into habits so that you don't have to consciously make decisions all the time. Now, that also means that the things that you're doing are habits that your brain created. So you're going to have to put some space in there, like I already just mentioned, for you to get in there and create some different actions. Support your brain in doing that with you, okay? Support your brain in helping you make those decisions by making those declarations and deciding on those things, saying, I'm going to make these changes, but know that in every moment of every day, you may have to recommit to those decisions. I would just, invite you to say that I'm not going to make this a negotiable for me. This is not going to be something that's optional. I made this decision. I'm standing on it, and from now on, that's what I'm going to do. Right now, on the flip side of this, you can absolutely decide at a later time that these things can change. Life happens, okay? Hormones happen, body changes happen, and your standards and what's best for you may change, right? So you can always decide that those things are going to change for you, but decide and then commit to that until it no longer serves you. Okay, when you realize that it doesn't serve you anymore, that is when I recommend you go ahead and make those shifts that you need to make. So I hope this was helpful for you all. These 4 grave mistakes, like seriously, it would have taken me a whole lot longer to figure this out had I not been diving into different books to help with self-development and help get my life together. Excuse me, as I was help me get my life together as I was making these changes for myself and learning these different pieces that I see is missing in so many of your journeys. So I hope this was extremely helpful. I'm going to dive even deeper into this by helping you create goals that are absolutely supportive to your result, and also create habits to help you get there. You frame that the right way. I want to help you create some goals that help you get to the result that you really want, help you get the habit, create the consistency around the habits that you really want to have, and unleash some of those stories, uncover some of those stories, really map those things out and see what is not supporting you in your beliefs and help you create some new beliefs that are going to support the results that you really want to have. And then on the flip side of that, I also want to support you and create a non-negotiable path to getting the results that you want to get. And I'm going to do a little bit of this in next week's 3-part series. It's going to be inside of the Undiet Tribe. So if you're not in there with us, come join us. The link is somewhere around this video, but you can also go to www.undiettribe.com and join us. It's our Facebook community right here. That's just the quickest way to find us. Next week, starting Monday, I'm going to do a 3-part series breaking down goals. So if you're making any of these grave mistakes, if you heard yourself in any of what I talked about today, you don't want to miss that series, because I'm going to help you, not just give you some general. I love to get into people's personal, because everything is personal when it comes down to your health. I can't give you, and nobody else should be giving you, a cookie cutter strategy, because it's not going to work. So I want to help you get down to your personal stories and your mindsets and help you to uncover some of the things that haven't been supporting you, and also start to create some more layers and a foundation in there that's going to support you in hitting that end result that you want to have, that comfort in your body, that comfort and peace in your relationship with food and your body, right? I want to help you have that, and I'm doing that partially in a 3-part series next week. So again, join us inside of the Undiet Tribe. I hope this was helpful. If it was, drop down in the comments and let me know, and I will come back and do more videos like this. So I appreciate you for spending this time with me. You have an absolutely amazing day. We'll talk soon.